Well, welcome to the Press Toward the Goal podcast. I'm very excited to have today on the show one of my friends, uh, four-time Queensland Muay Thai champion, two times Australian Muay Thai champion, and two-time South Pacific champion, Brad Walton. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hey Jason, thanks for having me, mate. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to talk with you, and you got a lot of belts there, a lot of things
Yeah,
for us to discuss, and we'll work through that.
indeed. Yeah,
Perfect. We like to get the show started by asking a few get to know you questions. Just let our audience know a bit about Brad Walton. So I'll
yep.
jump straight in. What's the most used app on your phone?
Most used app would be a stretching app.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a stretching app that I got that sort of helps and yeah, very beneficial before training, after training, and yeah, in my spare time as well. So
Do you want to give it a
yeah.
plug? Do
What's that? Sorry,
you want to give it a plug?
give it a
What's it
plug.
called? What's it
That
called?
oh, one sec. Home stretch and workout. Home stretch workout. It's just
Yeah,
in the app store. Yeah, it's just a basic one. Yeah, it's just one that I tend to use a lot.
very nice.
As the age
Uh,
is getting on, I need that stretching.
you're still a spring chicken, I can assure you, compared to some of us. I know you're a lean, mean fighting machine, but what's something you eat or drink too much of?
Um, I have to put my hand up there and unfortunately say just a plain dairy milk chocolate. I'm a sucker for
Yeah,
it.
the number of people who I ask that question and they say chocolate, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's my worst enemy, my best friend at the same time.
Yeah, I think some of us share that relationship, that's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, that's
What's the
right.
best advice anyone ever gave you?
Ooh, best advice anyone ever gave me. Stay humble.
Yep.
Stay humble.
Yeah,
That's the
that's good.
one. Yeah.
That's good. Do you have a piece of sports equipment or sports memorabilia or something which you could never part with? A favorite piece, a
Yes, I do
favorite item?
actually. I do. Yeah. So I've actually got one of my supporter fight shirts. It's got a picture of myself on the front. When I was down doing some training with the Tougher Brothers, and there was Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt signed one side of it, and I've signed the other side. So it's a pretty special bit of memorabilia I've got. And then that'd probably be in par with. I've also got and a pair of Evolution fight shorts. It's a fight show that doesn't run anymore, and I'm lucky enough to have them signed by Soren Monkentong. He's a very famous fighter in the Thai scene, very established, and I was lucky enough to have him for a trainer for quite some time. And yeah, got a signed pair of shorts from him.
Yeah, awesome. And Mark Hunt's a UFC fighter, is that right?
Yeah, he's a retired UFC fighter. He's the one that just fought I think it was Sonny Bill Williams and knocked him out.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
so
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. So they're probably the two bits of my prized possessions that I won't part with.
Very good. Who was your heroes growing up, either sporting heroes or somewhere else?
Growing up, oh, all right. It's hard to pick. I think I've got four there. Surprisingly, even though I do Thai boxing, I wasn't introduced to Thai boxing until I was about 20 years old. It would actually be boxing. So it would be hard to decide. Muhammad Ali,
Yep.
Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., um, and so one more. Oh, Tyson Fury, sorry. That's
Oh,
right.
yeah,
I had it
Tyson
written down.
Fury.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, those four, definitely.
Yeah, right. Bit of a character, Tyson.
Yeah, and I also I think I really connect and really flow in their sort of way because especially Tyson Fury's because he had a very similar upbringing to me, was addicted to drugs, all that sort of stuff, sort of end up homeless, all that sort of stuff, and being able to turn it right around. So especially Tyson Fury, I really feel close to his personal story that he shares.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're definitely going to touch on that a little bit as we go through our conversation. But you mentioned there that you didn't start Muay Thai until you were 20.
Mm.
So you were boxing when you were younger. Was boxing kind of the
Yeah,
sport
done.
you did growing up?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I wouldn't say it was a big consistency or anything. So before my mum had passed, she got me into boxing when I was about 14 or 15, and then sort of just here and there, casually sort of went to classes. Um, which I'll touch base on later. Then unfortunately, my mum passed, sort of distracted with some other things that I've just been able to explain on, touch base on later. But yeah, so I ended up getting introduced to Thai boxing when I moved to Queensland at 20 years of age. So yeah.
Yep. And how was that kind of the transition from boxing to Muay Thai? How did that come about when you got
Very, very, very.
introduced?
So funny story, that one actually. So when I moved up to one of my older brothers here in Queensland, you may have heard of it or may not have. There's a movie called Ong Bak.
Don't
It's got
think so.
it's got an actor called Tony Jaa in it, and he's a very famous Thai actor that does Thai boxing and that sort of martial arts in a lot of films. And yeah, so I'd never seen anything of Muay Thai so until I was 20. Then when I finally watched this movie with one of my brothers, I was absolutely mind blown by this moves that this guy was pulling off, like elbows, knees, kicks, punches. And considering I was only ever introduced to punching, I was just like, whoa, what's this? um, yeah, so the following week I went to one of the local gyms, which was only 15 minutes down the road, the Thai boxing center, and that's where the journey started.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome.
Watching a
I,
movie.
yeah. Wow. And when you went along for the first time to this gym, did you fall in love with it straight away?
Oh, I was absolutely obsessed with it. Absolutely obsessed with it. Probably a bit too much, I think. So yeah, I started in the deep end. When I started off, I started training 5 days a week straight away.
Wow.
Yeah, yes, the full on. But yeah, just absolutely fell in love with the sport. Just there's levels to it, and yeah, I still love boxing. Boxing is an absolutely amazing sport as well, but just yeah, I've just been drawn towards the Thai boxing with all the 8 limbs rather than just the two.
Yep. And what was it about Muay Thai that you fell in love with more than normal boxing? Is it just the ability to use more of your body parts?
I think there's a couple of factors. That would be one of them, definitely. Another one, I think, which we can also touch base on later if you'd like, but would probably because, as I mentioned, my mother did pass at 16. So I think for those few years that I sort of got lost, caught up with the wrong things, when I turned 20 and finally went to this gym and got started in Thai boxing, um, it really gave me something to focus on and
Yep.
put my energy into rather than the things I was doing, and really helped me it really saved me as a person, I think. I could have definitely went down and possibly not been here the way that things were going. So yeah, I think it really saved my life, and yeah, it's absolutely. I think that's so. It's a little bit different than the boxing because I had my mum there. Then when I started the Thai boxing, it was a bit different. I didn't have even my parents there, and it sort of helped save me as a person. So yeah, I think that's what I enjoy. So it's hard to say that I enjoyed it more because the boxing was amazing too, but just in a different part of my life, and I think it really helped that moment of my life. So yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about what was going on in your life when you started to do Thai boxing.
Yeah, okay. Just briefly, I'll keep it short. My father had committed suicide at age 9, and then my mother committed suicide at age 16, and obviously ended up in gangs, ended up taking drugs as a bad drug addict, ended up in a really bad way. Got down to like 40 something kilos. I didn't look like I thought I was be pretty much dead. Um, yeah, so then when I decided to I just got over it finally one day, and then my brother got in contact with me, and it was just like a blessing from God. And yeah, moved up here, and ever since then I've been 10 years clean now, and I'm 30, and I haven't touched anything since 20. So yeah, so yeah, and I think that's really helped me put focus into it and helped save my life and where I was going with the things in my life that were happening at the time. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fantastic. And I hear a lot of athletes say that the discipline and the routine
Oh,
and that
amazing.
sort of thing from sport, and specifically something like this where your body is so finely tuned that, like you said, has been a lifesaver for you.
Yeah, indeed.
Yep. Yeah. So you start training. When you started training, was it just for the discipline, just for the kind of outlet that you started doing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so actually, I just basically started, as I mentioned, watching this movie, Ong Bak. So I just wanted to learn this new martial arts that just sort of got my attention. And then when I finally started to put things in place, realized you could actually throw a kick, a knee, an elbow, and all these other limbs. I was just head over heels for it, obsessed. And then Yeah, I was just mesmerised by it. Just
Yep.
stopped training. I ended up at some probably about 12 months into training. I had a landscape gardening business that I was earning around 2 grand a week, so I was going really well. And after training for so many months, 12 months, had my first fight, and I was only planning to. So I started training only just to get confidence and self defense. Then it led to, oh, okay, I'll jump over the ring, have one fight. Had my fight, won my first fight by knockout, and I was like, well, this is crazy. And then I thought, all right, well, if it happens, I'll win a Queensland title. Had 4 more fights, also won by I had 5 fights, 4 knockouts, and 1 decision. And I was like, all right, and I got offered a Queensland title. Then it's all just started from there. Now I've got 4 Queensland titles, 2 Australian titles, 2 South Pacific, and I've also competed for 2 world titles.
Yeah. Well.
Um, yeah, just took
So
over. I only started it for self defense and a bit of confidence, and yeah, just formed into an absolute obsession and passion.
yeah, that's great. Now, when you talk about you were kind of offered a fight when you just
Mm.
started out in Thai boxing, how does that come about? Does everybody who trains go into fighting, or was there somebody there
Not,
who
no, not
identified?
everyone. Probably, to be honest, I'd say probably a less of the percentage on the scale would fight rather than train. I personally think 80 to 85% of the people that come in the gym are just wanting to better themselves, um, and learn self defense and get confidence. Those one that do, like what you do majority of the time, a trainer should be doing is asking the people when a new student come in, basically, what are your plans? What are your goals? Do you plan on fighting? Do you want to do it just for headspace? Do you want to do, what would you like to get out of it? Weight loss, whatever it may be. Those that do say fighter, you sort of keep a close eye on them on the side. When you start to see that they're ready for it, you can move them up from the beginners class to the intermediate, from intermediate to full-time fighters, and then it just progresses from there. And then one day the trainer normally turns around and goes, hey, we've got a month, 2 months, 3 months, or whatever the time frame is till the fight show. Would you like to fight? Put your hand up, yes, and then hopefully the promoter gets a match with your weight and sort of same experience, and then it goes from there.
Yeah, awesome. What are you feeling before you go into your first fight?
Oh, wow, funny you say this. So I actually fought at a place called Fitzy's Tavern. I think it was Fitzy's Tavern in Logan Home.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. And there's a there's like a restaurant right next to it because it's in a tavern. And I remember prior to maybe an hour or half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour max, about to, I was fight number 2 for my first fight, and I was next door and I was trying to have a coffee to calm myself down, which was completely opposite because obviously putting caffeine in your body makes everything go crazier. And I turned around to my coach at the time and I said, "Oh, I don't think I can do this. I've got to leave."
Wow.
I was actually wanting to leave and go home, and yeah. Um, so the nerves, just it's feelings that you couldn't even think of that you'd ever go through. Um, yeah, so I ended up popping out and ended up having the fight. I think in the first round, so I knocked him out in the second round, but first round, thought I was fit, and I didn't know how. It doesn't matter how fit you are. Yeah, a minute in there feels like an hour, and yeah, I threw everything I had in the first round, and I was so dead, and so I went back to the corner at the first round, and I said to my trainer at the time, "Can you please throw the towel in? I'm done. I don't want to. I don't want to go back out." And my trainer turned around at the time and she used, of all things, my parents. She goes, "Oh, think of your parents. This is what you're doing it for." And I was like, all right. And I went back out second round and fortunately knocked him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but yeah, I've got so many different stories as well. I'm sure every fighter has their own stories. They got funny stories, crazy stories, all different types of stories. And but yeah, that's just the one leading up to my first one. I was actually going to leave the venue.
Wow. So I bet
Yeah.
that, a lot of people who do combat sports, I bet it would be a common feeling, I imagine.
It is. What I've learned, and I'm assuming every other fighter that win time and with experience, is that you still get the nerves, but you learn how to control them. You can use them to channel it as an energy source, or you can sort of don't can use it to control it, and it drains you.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things in time, I guess. Like everything with
Yeah.
experience, you get better and learn to control whatever you're doing at the time better. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And you then went and fought for a Queensland title, Queensland
Yes.
champion 4 times, like you mentioned, 2 times Australian champion.
Yep.
and 2-time South Pacific champion. Is it just generally a progression? You win the Queensland title, then you
Yeah,
go.
so normally how it works, basically, if you have 5 fights, 5 wins, depending on what show, not every show does it. Some shows are different. I hold the titles, most of my titles are in WKBF, so World Kickboxing Federation sanction. And so with that one, basically, if you have 5 fights, 5 wins, you get a Queensland title shot. And then once you've won your first title, you have to defend it once. Once you've had a successful defense, you move on to the next title. So Queensland, success. The reason I've got 4 Queensland titles is because I have 2 ISKA. So I don't know how to pronounce what ISKA stands for. But yeah,
Don't
International
worry about it.
Association. And then WKBF. So that's why I've got 4, because I've got two different sanctions. Yeah, so it's like a progression thing. Yeah.
And when did you win the first of those? How long into your career after you started training?
Would have been about maybe anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years.
Wow.
So yeah, before I actually, it progressed pretty fast.
That's right.
But I have my first Queensland title I fought for. Funny story as well. So this guy that I fought, I actually didn't win my first Queensland title. I lost it, and then this guy moved back or decided to throw the towel in and didn't compete again. But long story short is, I didn't know what Taekwondo was at the time either, and this guy was a 3-time world Taekwondo champion.
Wow.
And yeah, so we touched gloves, and he ran up and he done this spinny kick on me, and I was like, oh, what's this? Because I only knew boxing and Thai boxing at that stage. So I was absolutely rattled for the first Queensland title. He was throwing all these spinny kicks, all this fancy stuff, and it's not that I'm certain because it's only flicky, but it was just it just really put me off my game. So
yeah, right.
First one, and then I was like, all right, made me hungrier and put more into the training and everything else, and come back and won it.
That's awesome, because everybody does face these sort of setbacks. Everyone, we can look at you and say, you got 8 belts, nationally, like even outside Australia in the regions, fought for world titles and that sort of things. But it doesn't all just come to you, does it? You do have setbacks. And did you just use those setbacks as a motivation for next time?
100%, 100%. Yeah, whether I had things going on in my life at the time, which was I couldn't put my full energy into, or my focus into my training camp, or whatever it is. Now that I've started to learn, when you're fighting and you're matched for a fight, everything else is irrelevant. You really need to put 110% focus into that camp. If you go in and you're unprepared, that's going to show come fight night. Don't get me wrong, yeah, I've got those titles, but people also don't see the other side. People that may not see the defeats and losses. I have lost a few titles as well, like 2 world titles, a couple of other titles, and believe me, yeah, it's heartbreaking, and you sort of just want to throw everything in. That's what the world's trying to test you with.
Yeah.
Really just got to not give up. And if I had given up on that, then I've lost 2. There's like 5 other titles that I've lost. So
yep.
If I had given up back then I wouldn't have anything that I've got now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great, being able to use that experience of losses and setbacks in a positive way. When you talk about the coming back from setbacks and that sort of thing, your world title fights, can you tell us about those? Where were they? What happened on those nights?
Yeah, so the first fight, I can't really go to too much detail because there's legally things happened at the fight show. I can't really go into too much detail, and
Yeah, sure.
A bit of a distraction for me. So my focus wasn't there, as I said, which is what I've learned now, that if I'm fighting, don't get sidetracked or whatever it is, and so put your whole focus into. And then unfortunately, I didn't learn my second time around, and I had some distractions in life at the time, and I had probably 2 biggest fights in my life. I had things going on, and I didn't learn to separate and put my fighter boots on and focus on that. And I sort of let the other things revolve around and sort of get to me a bit too much, which now I've learned from that. You really got to learn to separate them.
Yeah, you talk about distractions and that sort of thing. I think it's worth mentioning that we have a lot of sports people in Australia, obviously AFL, NRL, cricketers and things who are professional, but everything you do it's all amateur, isn't it? There's very few fighters that earn a living from solely just competing.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Like, I've in the process of relocating my gym to Thornlands, but prior to that, yeah, I would say my gym's what's kept me be able to run my gym and keep it open. It's not what the fights have been paying me. It's the Thai boxing. You don't get a great deal compared to boxing, but yeah, it's more a love of the sport.
Yep. Yeah, but it's that thing, you get distractions. Everyone does have
You
things
do.
going
Yeah,
on in their life, and you can't just choose to escape that. You still have to live your life at the same time as trying to compete for world titles and trying to keep yourself fit, trying to keep yourself motivated.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's where you've just really got to learn as an elite athlete to be a professional about it and be able to choose to focus on what you need to at certain times and parts of your career. So yeah, which is what I've learnt definitely. So
Yep. So
uh,
we talk about these combat sports where they're done by weight categories.
yes, correct.
So how important's your diet and your discipline in your food and preparation? How far out from a fight does that start?
Very crucial. I'd say a good camp, or like a really really good camp, would be 8 to 12 weeks. But don't get me wrong, there's last minute pullouts and things like that in the fight. So you may have 24 hours to prep,
Well,
within a week to prep. So yeah, but generally a good 8 to 12 weeks, I think, is personally a good camp.
yep,
Yeah, you've really got to focus on your food and your water intake and that, because when you're training your body at such a high level, puts a lot of stress and strain on your body. And if you aren't putting back into your body, yeah, you just disintegrate quite fast.
yep. And
Mm.
you mentioned earlier you've had some setbacks with not winning titles and losing
Yeah,
championship fights and that sort of thing.
yeah.
What was the lowest point of your career,
Lowest point in my career.
or even
Including inside and outside the sport.
yeah, yeah, I was going to say like maybe the lowest point of your life when you felt like, wow, this is too much.
Um, don't get me wrong, it was a very bad stage in my life where I was a drug addict. I was homeless and those sorts of things after losing my parents.
It's
It was
awful.
hard, but personally, I think the hardest thing I've ever had to come up against and do was when I was incarcerated
Yep,
for 11 months.
yep. And I know you personally. I know a bit about your story, and you were exonerated. You were found not guilty of that in the end, but obviously you got a beautiful partner, two beautiful kids, and being away from them. How did you even maintain your fitness and your physical condition?
Well, the fitness wasn't really maintained, to be honest. I went in at 76 kilos and I've come out at 96. So
Okay,
I've
well,
gone a bit of weight. Um, I was basically just getting over to strength training when you're stuck in a little cage and your yard's as big as a garage sort of thing with 30 to 100 men, depending on what unit and stuff you're in. Yeah, you don't really have any place to do running or anything like that. So it's hard to keep up the the fitness side of things. Like you can't have ropes now, you can't have this sort of stuff because people inappropriate use it for the wrong things and that sort of
yeah,
stuff. So yeah, it was really hard keeping up the fitness side of things in there. I think something that really got me through, just my beautiful family, my amazing partner, and my kids. Being able to speak to them every day on the phone, multiple times a day, is really what kept me strong and made me not fall into the traps that people were falling in there, and really, yeah, take
yeah,
the best out of it and learn to really appreciate and respect everything, including time, down to your washing powder, a tap that turns. Yeah,
yep.
we really get complacent, and yeah, so that has really put a big appreciation in my life. Not that I wasn't appreciative prior to that, but just that much more. So,
Yeah.
and
What? Sorry, you go on.
oh, you're right. No, you're right.
I was gonna ask you. There was someone else in prison who a chaplain or somebody who also had a big influence on you. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely blessed. When I was incarcerated as well, I had met a chaplain. So some people may not know what a chaplain is. It's a religious person that comes around, helps people. Yeah, so he introduced me to God. Prior to this, I I was a believer. I've never not been a believer, but I've never really followed the path or really acted on it. When I was seeing this chaplain twice a week in prison, he really helped me do Bible studies and just teach me the word. And I think that was probably the biggest savior, realizing how amazing the Lord is and what he can do for you. So I've also taken it from there and didn't just use it as while I was in a tough time to use the Lord, but also when I'm in a good time with my family and everything, like prior to, after that now. I've been baptized since being released. Absolutely amazing by
Yeah.
yourself. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I've got a beautiful family. As I mentioned earlier, I haven't really had much family because both my parents passed. I was moved around a lot, foster care, homeless, all this and that. So I've got an amazing family now. I've got a beautiful partner, 2 kids, and also as the Lord's given me an amazing family, my church family. So yeah, He's really saved me and given me better things to look at, and yeah, all onwards and upwards from here. So I have no one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's so inspiring, and I grew up without a dad as well, so I know what that's like, and my walk with God's so similar. Some people really have an issue, and they carry a lot of baggage from not having a dad around. But when you know your heavenly Father, it's just so good, so liberating, and I've certainly got a different perspective to other people I know who didn't grow up with the faith perspective. You mentioned yourself there that you were kind of always a believer. Did you grew up with some sort of faith in your life?
Yeah, so as a child, don't really remember the time frame. Unfortunately, psychologists and that have said that I struggle to remember a lot as a child because of the trauma I went through. So my brain has done some sort of reaction thing and just decided to cut it out of my life. But yeah, there was a few times here and there that when my mum was still around, she took me and my brothers to church. Only not even a handful of times that I can remember, but I do remember going to church.
Yep.
Don't even remember if I had the belief or whatever it was, but I do remember it was in my life once upon a time, even though I didn't follow or pursue to follow the word. But I was pointed back on that path, as I said, in prison and all that. And yeah, so I did have it was introduced at a young age, but very, very extremely briefly, like very, very little.
Yep.
Then life just went on. And yeah, I was reunited with my heavenly Father, and absolutely blessed for it. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about knowing of God, but not knowing God, like as
that's
in the existence of God, and that sounds a bit like what you're describing.
you couldn't have put it into better words. That's right. Like I always sort of something there, knowing there was a God or something, but I didn't know, never knew the ins and outs of the faith, all this sort of stuff. Like, yeah, so it's really good being able to learn the word and really actually understand everything about it all now. So
Yeah.
still in the milking stages, still quite early of it all, but
Yep.
it's an absolutely amazing journey to be on, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to walk the path with the Lord.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Obviously, combat sport, which you do, about as physical as any sport could get.
Mm.
You had any major injuries or anything which have affected your career and your progression?
Surprisingly, nothing too bad. Oh, actually, I do have one. It's very, very strange one. So I don't know if you can see my ear. So see how I got my left top of my ear there?
Yep.
I don't know if you can see, but my right ear. Can you see how the top's been chopped off?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was actually in my classes at the gym I was running boxing. I had this gentleman come up and I introduced myself to him on the Monday. Same thing happened on the Tuesday. And then the Wednesday happened again and I introduced myself again. And he thought I was joking, but my partner was standing next to me this time. And she's like, "What's that? You've introduced yourself 3 times now." And I didn't recall meeting him the 2 nights prior. So after this training session, my partner goes, "We're going to Redcliffe Hospital." I went to the hospital because I had a really big hematoma. Didn't think much of it. I just thought it was a normal hematoma,
Wow.
cauliflower ear. And when I went there, they done head scans, and I basically had a blood clot that was above my ear, that was inside above, but it actually split the blood clot. So blood was coming down the back of my neck, and it was draining straight back up to my brain. So I started having a slight bit of memory loss. Very, very strange. So they rushed me straight to Royal Brisbane Hospital. When I got there, they snipped the top of my ear off and put me straight in surgery and done whatever they had to do. Yeah, it was pretty, pretty painful. But apparently they reckon that if I just had have left it, could have been within a couple of weeks that I could have gone to sleep and not woken up.
That's crazy.
Waking up could have been a vegetable. Like there's many of things that could have happened,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So yeah, I was very, very lucky. That's probably the most scariest injury I've had.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
And was that from a blow you took in a fight or something?
Yes, yeah. So I was in the process at the time getting ready for a thing called Beast Championship, and it was in little gloves. So like you know how you got UFC, that's little
Oh,
gloves.
yep, yep.
Thai boxing's bigger gloves. But at this time I was getting prepared for in a cage in a little gloves on this Beast Championship show, and yeah, it was all during that time. Not sure whether it was the little gloves, the compact of the impact in the ear, what it was, but yeah, just yeah, flared up, and I just thought it was normal cauliflower ear, but it turns out it was a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, good thing you got onto it early on, or you might not
Yeah,
have been here to tell the story
yeah,
by the
exactly
sound of
right.
things.
Yeah, that's it. So
Yeah. Um, combat sports, obviously, like we've said, it's quite aggressive. You know, is there a persona that people expect? Like I know you're such a nice, kind, such a gentle guy. Is there a sort of persona which is associated with that? People expect you to act or behave a certain way when you participate in combat sport?
yeah, as sad as it is, unfortunately, as soon as you're like a fighter or whatever, like in the combat sports sort of thing, people do just sort of put you, it's like basically judging a book before it bites cover. They go, oh, yep, he's that sort of person. He's going to be like this. He's aggressive. He's all this and that. Yeah, so people definitely have that outlook on me, thinking that I'm going to be this sort of person, and then 10 times out of 10, once if they get to know me or speak to me, they're like, oh wow, you're completely opposite to what I thought. So um, as I said, the very one of the biggest things is stay humble no matter what you achieve in life or how far you
Yeah,
come. Always treat everyone with respect and the way you'd like to be treated. We're all equal. Just because
that's
you've got
right.
work hard or whatever it is doesn't mean you're any better. You just put in harder work, and you're seeing the results for it. So we can all do it, but it's just having the right circle around you and the right support.
Yeah. And is it difficult for you to kind of find the balance between the person that you are inside the ring and the person you want to be outside the ring?
Surprisingly not. As funny as it is, I actually hate fighting.
Wow.
As weird as it sounds, I actually don't like fighting. I hate it.
Yep.
And it's funny because when I speak to a lot of fighters, there's quite a lot of fighters that feel the same. Just something we've trained, and it's just what we've become good at, and
Yep.
just that's just sort of thing. So, yeah, no, surprisingly not. I find it quite easy. I've got kids. I'm a family man, so I'm very gentle. I'm very family orientated. Very humble, very soft. So I don't like to be that aggressive or whatever people try to judge fighters by. So yeah, no, I try to basically as soon as I jump those ropes, that's all gone and everything changes. I'm always normal until I get to the ropes. As soon as I jump over, it's different. It's
Yeah.
like it's like the switch flick. It's like the switch just flicks. So
Yeah. White line fever, I think they call it in football and that sort of thing. Once you cross the line, it's,
yeah, that's right. Yep.
yep,
Yeah. Same.
showtime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very good. And I know that you haven't had a fight for a couple of years, a big
Yeah, it's
fight.
been about 2 years
Yep,
now.
you're still pursuing that. Is that something you're going to be
Yeah,
doing again?
there's a possibility. I've just got to have a little bit more of a chat. Maybe in March. That's not a definite. If not, I'll definitely be fighting in July. Will be my return 100%. Mm.
Yep. And what will you have to start again if you're not a current champion of belt holder?
No, not the promoter. I'm pretty good with the promoter, and I should be able to just either if I don't get world title, I'll probably go for South Pacific or all that, and then get the world
Yep.
title. So, all depends, I guess, what weight I can get down to because I was competing at super welterweight, which was 69 kilos. I'm
Yep.
now 96.
Wow.
So, and I have gained a lot more, not just fat but muscle as well, while I was incarcerated. So, yeah, I guess we'll just see what my body lets me get to healthily, not unhealthily, and passing out and killing my body too much. So, yeah, we'll
Yep.
see as well. So the weight factor might play things, and yeah, just take it as it comes, I guess.
Yep. And I've been watching some of your older fight videos, just preparing to have a conversation with you here, and you can tell the difference in your physique. As a bigger guy, is it harder, or is it harder to keep the weight off for you, or what do you think would be
It's just
your?
it's just something that over the time people have just done. It's just been passed down. People are cutting weight to try and make the fight, because basically got 24 hours from when you jump on the scales to when you fight. A lot of people get IVs, they get the fluids back in. So even though they weigh in at 69, they probably jump on the ropes at 74, 75.
Wow.
Uh,
One day.
yeah, but also it can go the other way as well. So by the food, depending on how you eat it and stuff, after you've cut so much weight, it can go the opposite and you're completely drained and withdrawn, and yeah, you don't come back too much. So I've ended up in hospital twice from my organs shutting down.
No
From
way.
There
Wow.
was once when I was in Darwin, quite a good story. I was fighting this guy Michimpy, and because I get the IV drip put in after my weigh-ins, there was no nurse that was there. I was told that there was a nurse, and she tried 16 times out the back, and there was just a absolute pile of blood under my arm, and I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here? This isn't right." So I had to go to hospital, and I was only 2 hours out from my fight.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 hours out. When I seen the doctor, and they said they tried putting a drip in me, and apparently my veins had collapsed because I was so dehydrated. So they couldn't get the IV in me either. So by this time, there was 18 times they tried getting an IV drip, 16 at the fight show, 2 at the hospital, and yeah, so they said I had to drink oral fluids to rehydrate myself to open up the veins again, and then they could put the IV in me. And I said, "Oh, it's all good. I'll sign myself out, and I'm just going to go watch. I won't fight." And I signed myself out, and within an hour I was preparing to fight, and I fought. So it's not saying it's
Uh,
a good thing, but it does take a toll on the body. It's probably not the best thing, but as I said, we'll see. I personally don't think I'll get back down to 69. I think
yep.
I think it's pretty impossible. I think it's a fat chance. Like even I have been training in a few weeks, 5 weeks. I've been back out of incarceration. Haven't been, and I mean the lowest I've got down to is 88. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle to get down to 69 again. So
Yeah. That's a wild story. Was that for one of the championships, one of the titles?
yeah, that was for what was it called? It's up in Darwin.
But it was a proper competitive
Fight show.
fight. It wasn't
Yeah,
like an
yeah. It
exhibition
was.
thing or something.
Nah, that fight's on YouTube too.
Wow.
Yeah, broke his nose, cut it. Like he had to. Apparently, I heard that. Yeah, he had to get pushed back in, like pretty bad, like really bad, at the hospital. Yeah, so I cut him open pretty bad, but I don't even really too much remember the fight. I was pretty out of it just from
Yeah.
hydration and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
may not have been the smartest, but I guess it is what it is.
Well,
Yeah,
ended up all right, but probably wasn't smart at all.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there, one of your opponents suffering quite a significant injury.
Mm.
How do you deal with that? Is that something that or you just focus, you're in the zone, just doing your thing?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's something all common that a lot of fighters do, but after pretty much most of my fights, not every, is depending on how they act to me as a person as well. But if they're respectful and everything, if they've been injured quite bad or whatever, then I'll always contact them and see how they're doing. Another guy, um, I fought and I split his spleen and he had internal bleeding and he ended up in ICU. Made sure I contacted him, and yeah, there's been some pretty crazy injuries that have happened. I've accidentally given to people, and yeah, always make sure be respectful and show that they care, because we're just there to do the same thing. We don't want to
Yeah, that's right.
each other, nothing like that. It's just to put on a show and do what we train for. So
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. With with the with the fights there, when you've talked about being in the combat game really for probably coming up to a decade now. You've been in fights. You've found your faith more recently than that, just in the last couple of years. Do you think your career would have been any different, or anything would have been different in your fight career if you'd found your faith earlier?
I think I could have achieved more,
Yep.
but I'm still not disappointed with what I've achieved. And I think I'm still very young. I'm only 30, and
Yep.
haven't found the Lord. I think there's only bigger and better things to come. So
Yeah, that's great.
yeah,
And you are 30, but you've achieved a lot, not just in your fighting career, but also in the establishment of boxing gyms, and you're very much focused on helping other people and other people coming through the ranks as well.
yeah. There's an organization I was working with prior to being incarcerated, Quantum America Cup. It's a suicide prevention organization run by amazing woman, Sandy. Yeah, there's a few ambassadors for that, so I was one of them. It's like they shared the slogan, "You are worth fighting for." Yeah, I actually have to get back in touch with her, but yeah, so they help a lot of the community and stuff with helping spread the awareness for suicide prevention, and there's a few other organisations that are out there that are doing the same thing. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and you certainly have mentioned to me a couple of times, even outside of this conversation, about your experience being something you can use to help other people, and the incorporating combat and physical training into that as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely something that I feel that has I've sort of noticed is obviously we get good endorphins going once we're started training and being doing exercise and physical activities. So I've definitely found that people that may not be open to talk about their issues or life or whatever it is that's on their mind, um, definitely I've noticed they do a training session, and after a training session, you have a bit of a chat with them, and they're a lot more open, and they communicate a lot better because they're feeling good. The endorphins are going through their body. So yeah, I'm also going to be doing a lot of studying psychology and human behaviors, and then I'd like to also sort of incorporate that with the physical side, so that way I can help, yeah, really help people mentally, physically, and as much as possible. So
Yeah, that's brilliant. You are setting up a new gym now in the eastern suburbs, Brisbane.
yeah, we just moved. We used to be in Northside, but now we've relocated to Thornlands. We're currently still doing one-on-one PTs at the moment. We're just not running full classes until we get our new facility. Hoping that by mid-January 2023, we're in there. Yeah,
And
it's just
how
pretty
can
crazy.
people find you if they want to do some training or something?
We've got social media. So Walton Style Boxing has an Instagram, a Facebook. If they do jump on our webpage or Facebook as well, oh no, it's just a webpage, sorry. The address is incorrect. It does still say Northside. I've got to wait for Google to change it. So we are relocated. But there's phone numbers on there, web pages, social media, all that. So plenty of ways to contact and inquire if they're interested in doing some classes, one-on-one PTs until classes start.
Yep, and you've mentioned there you've obviously got the training which you do yourself, your own boxing, Thai boxing training. You do classes like as an instructor. You also do the fighting. Is there something there? Which one of those is your favourite, or do you get the most out of?
It's hard. So different things in different areas, and why I say
Yeah,
that is, example, I start training kids from the age of 4, and it's amazing to watch the confidence and the kids' self-development grow. Like, for example, a kid might come in one day holding the parent's leg. You know how most kids are pretty shy, don't want to leave the parent's side. 4 weeks goes by and they walk in, and then all of a sudden it's like the parents trying to get their kid to leave the gym. So it's amazing watching the development grow within the youth.
yep,
And also, don't get me wrong, I love training adults as well. There's a lot people that obviously have had things happen in their life, so it's a big release for to get the endorphins going, and yeah, help release many factors for them. So yeah,
yeah,
uh,
great.
mm,
I think that ties in nicely to a listener question that I've got. I've got a question from Queen Collie on Instagram, and she asks, how old is too old to start training for Muay Thai?
I would say not too old. I have a gentleman that is 79 years of age,
No way.
and he does 3 PTs a week, and he goes as hard as my 20-year-olds.
Wow.
Just saying that. He's an amazing inspiration. 79 years of age.
Yep.
So obviously he's not trained to jump over the ropes enough, and he's just doing it for his mental state and his physical and health. And yeah, it's really, really good. Never too old to learn.
That's
But
unreal.
you just want a good trainer as well. Some trainers may sort of make you feel uncomfortable, may have standards for you, and that's really sad. But as long as you find the right person, never too old.
Yeah, perfect. And that is something then you can pursue, obviously, for the younger people. There are people who would do it for, 50 plus years. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Yep, yep. That's like a lot of people, a lot of teenagers, sort of young adults, maybe 18 or 19 starting or whatever, and they go, "Oh, I'm too old to start fighting." And I say, "What?" And I'm like, "I didn't start this till I was 20." And they're like, "Whoa, what?" And they just spin out about it, because it's really what you're going to get out is what you put in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, you put in your as much as you can, and all you can, you're going to get out all of you can. So Yeah, it's really what you want to get out of it. But yeah, age is just a fact. Age is just a number. Never, not too young, not too old. My little boy's only 1, and he does a jab and cross already. So
How
yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, got like to finish every interview, every conversation which I have on this podcast with the same question.
Yep.
And what I want to ask you is, how does Brad Walton want to be remembered? Oh, actually, sorry, before we do that, I just want to touch on one other thing I was meant to do earlier. I completely forgot. Brad the Weapon Walton. Where did the nickname the Weapon come from?
So I had 6 fights, and out of my 6 fights, I cut 5 people with my elbows, and I just come after my 6th fight.
Yep.
Just by cutting people with my elbows. I love my elbows; they're my favorite weapon.
Yep.
So that's why it was Brad the Weapon Walton.
Brad the Weapon Walton. Can we call you the Weapon, or do you prefer to go
Whatever you
by
prefer
Brad?
to call me on. Yeah, no
Yeah.
dramas at all.
Very good. Yeah, so we'll get back. How does Brad Walton want to be remembered?
Family man, loving, caring, respectful, someone that will give his time to everyone any time of the day, and always there for everyone.
Yeah, it's quite telling there, and it's a theme which comes up with a lot of professional athletes and high performance sports people that I speak with. They don't refer back to their achievements or their accomplishments, because they're there, but it doesn't define who you are.
No, correct. As I said earlier as well, we're all humans. We're all equal. No one, just because I got a few titles there or someone has this or that, we're not different. We all bleed red, and we all got feelings and emotions. We're the same. We're all humans. So we're all definitely equal there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Brad, it's been, or should I say, the Weapon. It's been great to chat with you. Thanks for
so
coming
much,
on the show, and I look forward to sharing your story with the people who see the podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for your time, Jace. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, mate. See you later. Thank you.
You.
Cheers, mate.